A moment Adnan Syed's family and friends waited for decades to see.
Adnan has been in prison since he was a 17-year-old child, 23 years. As you can imagine, today is both joyful and incredibly overwhelming.
But the joy for one family comes as another deals with what they call a continued nightmare.
This family is interested in the pursuit of justice. They want to know more than anybody who it was that killed Hae Min Lee.
This morning on 11 TV Hill, we dive into the Adnan Syed case, what led up to this moment, and what comes next as he awaits a new trial. And hello everyone, I'm Jason Newton. Welcome to this edition of 11 TV Hill. Adnan Syed's case, it captured the nation's attention through the hit podcast Serial. There's a possibility of a new trial, but for now, 2 decades after his conviction, Syed is out on home detention. This decision caused quite the sparring match between Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby and Attorney General Brian Frosh. Mosby accused the state of Brady violations for withholding pieces of evidence from Syed's defense team. However, Frosh says that's not true. He claims the file was made available to the defense on several occasions. This is just part of a larger puzzle surrounding Syed's freedom and whether the case will be retried in court. Joining us now is University of Baltimore professor Dave Giles. Thanks for coming by, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
As we talk more about this Syed case, what happened years ago that got us to this point now?
So much has happened with this case. I mean, so much happened with this case. The key thing that happened that has resulted in this vacating his conviction is that there was critical evidence suggesting that someone else had threatened the victim in this case that was never turned over to the defense. And there's more than that now. That led to more investigation, and now the investigation seems to suggest they have not 1 but 2 viable suspects who might actually have committed this crime. So there's real reasons that there were problems with this case that go all the way back to the beginning.
If this could happen in this one case, I just feel like it's possible this doesn't happen in a vacuum. If one person has happened to in our court system, is it possible that there are others out there?
This is the horrifying case that tells you that there's something deeply wrong with the system. It's striking that in Baltimore we've had some really high-profile cases. We had the trial of the officers tried in the death of Freddie Gray. We had this case, which not only received an incredible amount of attention, but also had an incredible amount of resources that went to it. Sure. If we're having Brady violations come out in both of those cases, all right, in the case of Adnan Syed coming out so late in the process, you shudder to think about what's happening in your average case that moves through the system every day. How many people are not given the evidence of their own innocence? It is really a dagger in the heart of the legitimacy of the system.
And for those not familiar with Brady violations, you explain it a little bit. This is where evidence is held by one party and the other party never gets to see it?
That's right. There's a Supreme Court case called Brady versus Maryland, which says that the state has a constitutional obligation to turn over exculpatory material. Exculpatory means it would suggest, it would help the defense. They have to turn that over to the defense in the course of trial. If the police have it, if the prosecutor has it, they have to let the defense know about it. And here, there was notes in the file that were discovered late that were not apparently turned over to the defense initially or during the appeals that suggested that someone else had been threatening to kill the victim. That is really significant.
I will admit I was a big fan of the podcast, listened to it from beginning to end, and my curiosity also is, if that podcast didn't exist, would we even know the name Adnan Syed?
You know, I don't know that we would, and that's terrifying to me because, you know, not every case gets a podcast. And so, you know, we know that in 44% of the cases across the country where people are exonerated, it turns out it's because the state didn't turn over exculpatory evidence. There was a Brady violation. In Baltimore City, the stats are worse. 80% of the people who've been exonerated, it turns out there was a Brady violation. So if it's happening here, we just have to be concerned about what's happening in other cases.
Is there a way, and I hear this in some states, that they can review a conviction? Someone gets convicted and there's someone or a group that can say, maybe we should take a second look.
Well, it's really hard.
Okay. I know there's a board that can look at sentencing. But
yes, there are mechanisms.
Okay.
But you know, the Supreme Court for the last 30 years have been trumpeting the idea that we need to have finality. We've made it harder and harder for people who've been convicted of crimes to get back in front of a court. They have to demonstrate either actual innocence or that there was some piece of evidence that they couldn't have had in the first place. It's very difficult. And there are many cases cases where we might feel that we're troubled by the conviction, that we don't feel it has integrity, which don't get overturned.
Last one, tell me about what happens next. I guess there's a 30-day period where you can decide whether or not this goes back to trial, possibly. Do you think we see another trial?
So I would be personally very surprised to see this go to trial. Now, it wouldn't shock me if it gets put on for trial. Right, the state has 30 days to either decide they're not going to prosecute the case or set it for trial, but they can just extend their time, and they may want to continue their investigation, be sure about what they want to do. So it wouldn't shock me, and I don't think we should think, oh, this is, oh my God, it's going to trial just because they set a trial date.
All right, Dave Giarlis, thank you, man.
It's a
Good
pleasure.
to see you.
Thanks.
Certainly.